Here, and then I'll pass it off to you, Sarah. So just kind of starting off, thank you everybody for coming here today. Especially thanks to a lot of our alumni for popping in. That's super awesome. The last few sessions I've done, we haven't had a whole lot of alumni come in, so this is great. But yeah, so I'm Scott Green. I'm one of our admissions counselors. So for any of you new students that have questions, feel free to toss any of these questions into the chat. I'm going to be here moderating, just kind of, reading those off for you if you need that, or if you have any questions about admissions too, outside of political science. But without further ado, I will let Dr. Sarah Fisher take it away here.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Sarah Fisher. I'm the chair of the political science department at Emory and Henry, and I will be starting my 6th year at Emory and Henry, and I had the pleasure of having all of these folks who are on the call with us. I guess I didn't have, no, everyone besides Scott in class.
I was going to say, yeah, I think
I didn't have you in class. So everyone besides Scott in class, and I think I said before the call started, just how thrilled I was to have folks back. I emailed these people yesterday because, it's the summer and I'm teaching a summer class, and so things are really crazy. And I was like, oh no, I should find some alumni. And I essentially had too many people respond to me who wanted to clamor in on this call to talk to you all. And I'm just so thrilled to see everyone's faces. In terms of why study political science at Emory and Henry, we're a pretty small department, but I do think that we offer a pretty wide range of classes. So we offer classes in American politics, but I would also say one of our main strengths is in international politics as well. So even if you don't end up in work in international politics, I think we teach some really interesting classes there. Dr. Krause teaches a class on drug trafficking, which is a student favorite. I teach a class on women in politics, which I think many of I can see faces here that took that class, and that's one of my favorite ones to teach. Trying to think what else. We have people who are interested in a lot of different career paths, and that's one of the reasons when I was going through my list of people to invite that I wanted to invite these folks, because we have a couple people. Taylor just finished law school. Alexis just finished her first year in law school. But we also have people who aren't interested. Oh, there we go, Jordan. Excellent. I like that book is ready to go. We read that in Women in Politics. And so we've got folks who are interested, like I said, in law school. Eva's dream job, Eva, I hope you don't mind me throwing you under the bus, is to be Leslie Knope. Is that accurate? Yeah, okay. And you can talk about what you're doing now. Bailey is working, I believe, still on the Hill. Is that still correct, Bailey? So, we've got lots of people. Jordan's a political consultant. So we've got lots of folks doing different things. And so I really don't want to talk too much. I'd really rather you all ask questions and maybe talk to the alumni too, why to come here and study politics. And so, Scott, is there anything else that you'd like me to go over before I hand it over to Q&As?
I would say some things you could kind of go into is what do classes tend to look like, I guess. What's an average day in one of your classes, maybe? So,
I teach a variety of classes. I teach statistics for social science, which I'm not teaching this year, actually, Dr. Krause is, but I teach statistics for social science, intro to international relations, which is at 8 a.m. Tuesday, Thursday, everyone's favorite time slot. My classes, I really try to make really discussion-based. I don't generally assign textbooks. I generally try to assign really fun books, like the one that Jordan held up for Sex and World Peace. I'm teaching national and international security in the fall, which is one of my favorite classes to teach. We're reading a book in that class called No Good Men Among the Living, which is just fantastic, and it's about the U.S. war in Afghanistan. So we're going to be talking about security a lot in that class, both from a traditional way of thinking about security with guns and bombs, and then a less traditional way of thinking about security. I already had, even prior to COVID, a section in there about pandemics, but I will obviously be expanding on that for this year. Trying to think what else.
Nice.
Our class, say it again.
Nice and topical.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I really try to hold classes, and so do the other folks in the department, that are really discussion based, and I think these folks maybe speak to that as well. And I think we're a really friendly department, I hope, or at least that's how I sort of think of ourselves, as people who really enjoy seeing like folks pop into your door. I know I have fond memories of like all of these folks popping into my office. I especially remember, for some reason, Taylor and Jordan always popping into my office together. Is that fair? So like just like periodically walking by Dr. Krause and I's office. And so I think we're a really friendly department. And I think that we have students from all political backgrounds. So I think we've got folks from sort of the range of the political spectrum. We have a lot of students who are interested in student government. Some of these folks on this call were in student government at Emory and Henry. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I guess we'll kind of open it up here to some questions from students. I mean, I might have questions too, so there you go. And also, I'm really curious to hear some of the stories from our alumni, since we have so many here today too.
Yeah. Maybe we can give folks a moment. I know it's kind of hard to like unmute yourself on a Zoom call with people that you've never met in your life. So I like that we're practicing in the Zoom chat, like a little bit, saying where we're from, but maybe we can take a moment and hear from a couple of our alumni and then pause for questions and give people a chance to think about questions.
And if they want to put their questions into the chat box too, I can read them off for everybody.
Scott will be our monitor. So great. I don't know, if you want to start with like why Emory and Henry perhaps, or like what you felt like worked out for you thinking about your career today, those kinds of questions to start with.
Taylor's unmuted. We'll start with her.
What was the question?
So I mean, why did you, I'm always curious why students came to Emory and Henry. And I know all of you Skyped in for my senior seminar class, and we kind of talked about like things that either helped you coming from Emory and Henry, and like when you think about what you're doing right now, if you want to talk about that a little bit, or your path after Emory and Henry. Because I think, I know like when I was an undergrad, I was always really, really worried about what I was going to do afterwards. And so you all are after college now, and you're doing things.
I guess the people skills you get at Emory, not everyone gets those at big schools, and that's helped me a lot. Just with work at the Senate office, with law school, being able to connect with clients on a personal level and not just on a, I'm working for you level has helped. Definitely.
I think that's a good point. I see some of you, the rest of you nodding. Do you feel like that's?
Yeah, I can absolutely back that up. Just because the discussion-based class, like the way that's run, it lets you kind of share your thoughts out loud, and maybe you'll share something and then someone else comes in with a point and you're like, oh, did not think of it that way. But it gets you more comfortable with that, which with what I do every day, I found super helpful, because I spend all day talking to people about like issues that are going on in politics, because I'm a staff assistant in the Senate, so I am fielding calls from all over the state of Virginia. People share their sometimes wonderful thoughts with me on what's going on in the country and around the world. But because I'm comfortable talking about these kinds of issues with people from all of the class discussions we had, like I felt really ready for that part of the job that I have.
I see Danny asked a question about like what careers you can have with a political science degree. And so like Bailey, for instance, is a staff assistant in the Senate. Taylor, I know that you're like just finishing law school, but would you mind saying like what you just finished and what you're doing right now?
So I'm doing post-conviction work through the law school.
What is post-conviction work, Taylor? I pretended like I knew what that was earlier, and I don't.
So post-conviction work is just work after your conviction. So it's like wrongful convictions, for example, is post-conviction work. People who are given an unjust sentence, people who are convicted on bad DNA evidence, that kind of work. You petition the court to have it reheard or to have it resentenced, or for a parole hearing in this case, if that's the only equitable remedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned, I know in my class, that you're interested in law, but then also interested in lobbying. So that's another, I think, job that many folks do after graduation in some fashion. Is that fair? What kind of lobbying do you want to do, Taylor?
I'm not sure. I was at McGuire Woods for a little while, and that's like big corporation lobbying. I didn't like that as much, but like smaller nonprofit lobbying, I think would be more fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got some
Cool.
great questions coming in here too. I'll kind of go through some of these. So kind of after that one, and
And we'll go back to careers too. Like we'll let these other folks jump in too.
Zoe had asked about what's the main difference between the politics and the international relations parts of the department.
That's a good question. I mean, there's not much of a difference because there's so few of us. Just in terms of the content of the class, that would be what's different. Um, I teach mostly international relations class, but I like my women in politics class and my national international security classes are pretty American focused. Like it's kind of split between American and international politics. So I think that they're really closely intertwined. Now, that being said, if you are primarily interested in international studies, we do have a track that is a more interdisciplinary track in international studies. I also see a question kind of related to this on study abroad options. I know Bailey studied abroad. I'm trying to remember if others of you studied abroad and I've forgotten.
Yeah, I studied abroad. That was like one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Emory and Henry, because I originally was recruited to play softball there, but the opportunity to kind of make your own study abroad opportunities is like kind of what ended up selling me on the school. So I was at the University of Exeter in England, which the school has a partnership with. So like an Emory and Henry student will go to Exeter, and an Exeter student will come to Emory and Henry, which kind of simplifies all the paperwork related stuff. But it was a wonderful experience. I did it for a whole semester, and it was really great.
And I know we have a lot of majors in our department who study abroad. And one nice thing about that is many of the courses transfer pretty easily. So I know that some majors have a more difficult time of it. Like if you're a chemistry major or something like that, you might have it might sort of get you off in terms of what courses you're studying. And you have to be a little bit, it's still very possible, but you just have to be a little bit more careful. But I know that we've had a ton of students study abroad and we've never had a problem with them falling behind or anything like that to get transfer credits in. I don't know if I've just blocked difficult things that we did to get your credits in, Bailey, but I'm pretty sure it was just an easy form. So I think
we ended up working it out.
Okay, yeah, I think it was pretty straightforward. I'm trying to think what else. There's a question on internships, and I think almost all of you were doing internships when you were at Emory and Henry. Would you all mind talking about those? Eva, I like your wrangling of your cat, by the way.
They're being crazy right now. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
But I interned for the Washington County Circuit Court for a semester, and I went through some records. I think Taylor did the same thing. And then I also interned for the town of Glade Spring. I was their administrative assistant and worked with their clerk and treasurer and town manager a lot. And that's actually how I got my job in Damascus now. So that's like a good opportunity and a good way to make connections and have resources available for you.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Eva, if you can maybe specifically, there was a question from Kennedy on, does Emory have opportunities to be involved in local politics? So like you are essentially, I guess maybe you wouldn't call it politics, but local government, but I think there would be, I'm trying to think of other examples of students who've worked in local politics.
Yeah, I know Orlando volunteered for Morgan Griffith. Also, like when I was interning there, I went to the council meetings. I worked with the council members and the mayor a lot in Glade. I know there's like definitely volunteer opportunities. I think Khalil King worked in Damascus for a little bit too. So I think anywhere that you want to get involved, Emory can help you do that. Like I know Amanda Gardner is good at making connections and meeting people up.
Yeah.
I know some people also interned in San Francisco with like a state senator, I think. So that's another way to get involved for sure.
Yeah. Well, the Speaker of the House for the state of California, right, is an Emory and Henry alum, Tony Atkins.
Senate Pro Tem.
Senate Pro Temp. Thank you, Bailey. So the Senate Pro Temp is an Emory and Henry alum, so that's kind of cool. Would you also mind saying what you do now, Eva? I know you mentioned you work in Damascus, but what do you do?
I am the town treasurer for Damascus, so I'm in charge of like the finances of the town. I make deposits, I take in taxes, I send out billing, I work with citizens, and it's also like a small town, so I do a lot of other kind of side jobs in there too for the town, but yeah, I'm their treasurer.
And Eva just graduated like 2 months ago, so that's so exciting. Yeah. Taylor, you unmuted yourself as if you were going to say something a moment ago.
Yeah, so Warner and Kane have offices in Abingdon, and you can intern at. I interned at Warner's office over winter break 1 year, and they're just grateful for the help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I interned in Warner's office as well, and I know the person who runs Kane's office in that area, which Dr. Fisher does as well.
So
definitely recommend that. If you have dreams of like interning in DC or getting into DC one day, interning during a semester in one of those offices is a really good stepping stone to get you tied into those offices, if that's something you want to do.
Yeah.
And Morgan Griffith has an office there as well, if that's more like where your politics are. It's kind of whatever your preferences would be.
And Israel Quinn is front an alumni as well.
Yep. Israel Quinn and Morgan Griffith. Yeah. You interned at Israel Quinn's office.
I did.
Yeah.
And I also interned for Congressman Phil Rowe as well. And both of those were really great experiences, and I learned a lot. But I really did enjoy interning for Israel because he put me in connections with a lot of other people, a lot of other delegates. He let me go to several meetings with them, and I got to meet Mark Warner as well as Vice President Pence too. So he just allowed me to have a lot of other opportunities even after my internship was over.
Yeah. And I feel like that's one thing being in a small town, because Alexis, like you graduated a semester early, right? And then worked in a law office, right? Do you want to talk just a little bit about like what yeah.
So one summer when I was at Emory, I worked at the district attorney's office. And then when I graduated a semester early, I actually went back to that same office and I worked in the fines and costs division, and I worked with victims. And so that was a really great learning experience, working with people and victims of all different kinds of crimes. And now this summer, I'm back at the DA's office, and I'm working primarily in domestic violence, and that was really great too. We actually have a couple of Emory alums there, so they let me work on a lot of their projects and do a lot of things for them too. So
yeah. So I did not go to a small school like Emory and Henry for undergrad, and one of the things that I'm constantly surprised about is just how many connections Emory and Henry has to places. Like, you know, Alexis is saying, like, you're working in the DA's office, and then, oh, there's some more Emory people. And so, and I think that for those of us who have looked for jobs before, right, so much of getting a job is who you know. And so, like, having those connections, I think, is so key. I'm seeing some head nodding. And Alexis, would you mind saying what you're doing right now in law? So
sure. So I go to Duncan School of Law, which is affiliated with Lincoln Memorial University, and that's in Knoxville. And so I just finished my first year, and this summer I'm working at the Sullivan County District Attorney's Office. And I don't have my limited law license yet, so I'm still primarily working with victims, mostly in domestic violence, and just a lot of other research projects and a lot of writing and motions and things like that.
Cool. Jordan, I feel like you're the only one who hasn't said what they do. And I feel like your job is really all about connections.
Yeah. So all of my jobs that I've gotten or I've landed and had any talks with people, mostly it's because they see Emory and Henry on my resume and they're like, oh, wow, like, what are you doing out here? Or I've heard of that school, but I don't see many people from there. So I currently am, I said, the deputy state coordinator there at Campus Vote Project. So trying to help campuses turn out and vote in each election. But previously, before, I was a finance director for Monica, who was running for Congress in Raleigh. And before that, I was a field director, or a regional field director for Andrew Yang's campaign down in South Carolina when the first 4 states were going on. So it's been mostly all about connections, but I think kind of talking to what Danny was talking about, what kind of careers you can have. You can have a multitude of careers, really. It just depends what draws you to what. I've done finance, I've done field. Now I'm kind of doing virtual organizing, but that entails everything from running Facebook ads to managing a budget to building field programs to building finance plans to what Taylor and Alexis do in the law side to what Bailey does on the Hill. So I think you can do kind of anything. It just depends what draws you to where.
I'll also say we have a ton, and I think some of these folks on this call would fit into this category of people who are double majors or even like triple majors. So we've got lots of folks who have, I think, really taken advantage of being in a small school where you can study lots of things. I'm trying to think, like we got, Eva, were you econ in political science? Am I right on that?
I'm political science and history, and then I minored in econ.
Okay, yeah. And so like lots of reading and writing there. And also like, I think one of the things that I hope that the political science department does really well is sort of equip people with really good analytical skills. So I hope that that's something that we've imparted. I know that like when you think about like people have multiple careers throughout their lives. And so being nimble enough to sort of bounce back and forth between like different topics, I think is so valuable. And I think something that Emory does well for like, especially I think in the social sciences, to have a whole bunch of different things that people are trying to juggle at one time.
Awesome.
I'm trying to see what other questions you've
So
got.
one of the questions that I saw, and some of you actually touched on it a little bit, but was, I guess more so while someone is a student there, what are some good ways or what are some opportunities for them to get involved in local politics, and what are some examples? As a current.
Well, I can say when I was there, goodness. Well, when I was there was an election. Yeah, it feels forever ago. 2016 was like the big election that was going on. Gosh. And so there were a lot of opportunities to get involved with local parties as well, if that was like your preference. Like it's Southwest Virginia actually has like very active local parties. So I was registering people to vote. I was also president of the campus's Young Democrats for a few semesters. So that kind of got me some ties with the local community. And so went out, got people registered to vote, passed out voting information, went out to some polling locations to hand out some more information. So those opportunities exist. You just have to ask or act on them. Because usually the local community loves Emory and Henry students. So like if you were to show up at like a local Democrats or Republicans meeting and they're like, oh, you're a student at Emory and Henry, like they love that. Mostly because the surrounding community is largely older and they love when students want to get involved in the community and local politics.
I also, while I was there, I worked in election day, and I think I even had class, but Dr. Shoemaker excused me for that day.
That seems like a very excusable thing to do. Yeah.
And I think it was 2016 too. And you get paid to work at the election office on election day. So it was a fun experience and you get paid. So like you can't ask for much more.
That does sound fun. I've never done that, but I've always thought about like that would be an enjoyable thing to do. Maybe next time. So, because you have to get trained for it, right? You can't just like show up.
Yeah. You do train.
I'm sure you all know more about this than someone who primarily teaches international politics. Yeah.
Well, you do it a few weeks in advance, but you also get paid for the training as well. So
that's nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm trying to think of what other like local politics Jordan, were you unmuting yourself and then I talked over you?
I was gonna say there's also like a lot of local groups. I was a part of APEC, which was Appalachian Peace Education. I can't remember the last C. So many acronyms in politics. But APEC was a big one, and there are a lot of just groups around to get involved with. I think kind of like what Bailey and Alexa were talking about. They love Emory Henry students. I think because you're well prepared, you have like the mentality. You can pick up the systems or the programs that you have to run, but you already have kind of the mental component to go out and do the thing. So they love that.
I'm trying to think what other, I know that the Appalachian Center for Civic Life does a lot of like outreach and has a lot of connections in the community as well. So I really do think like if you're someone who's interested in local politics or local like community things, like Southwest Virginia is the place for you. Like people want folks to show up and want folks to like lend a hand. I think especially in a community that is more rural. Like I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, and it's not a major city, but it's maybe like 300, 400,000 people in the metro area. And it's just a very different, like Southwest Virginia and Emory is a really small town. So like you just kind of get to know people through those connections.
I'll also say, and I think probably Bailey and Alexis and Taylor can say this too, but when you do get involved with stuff, it's not busy work. It's not like grabbing coffee for people. They actually give you tasks to do and work on, and you actually learn something from doing work.
That's great.
Awesome. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions from some of our students in here. Don't see any yet, but give me a second here.
Think of other.
I guess one question I might have is that, so some of you have told me where you've ended up going into law school or into whichever grad programs you're looking at, or if going straight into work. I guess this one might be more for you, Sarah. Where are some other places that you know that our students have ended up, those who might not be here right now?
Well, I'll also say like we actually currently have no one in graduate school on this call, but we have multiple, I mean, law school I know is graduate school, but it's not quite. I feel like law students would say, no, it's not graduate school. I don't know. What do you all have a comment on that? Is it grad school? It is grad school. Taylor's doing this. So anyways, we have people who go into just sort of straight, like plain graduate school paths. So like Mason Boyd is one that comes to mind. He's doing a PhD in political science at the University of Tennessee. We've had multiple people go and do master's programs at Virginia Tech and then work in like either state and local government after that. Chaz Jones, who I think might be joining this call in a few moments, got his master's, I think at American. I'm sure he'll correct me when he comes on if I was wrong on that one. So I believe at American, and he currently works, does anyone remember where Chaz works? He works for the federal government, but I can't remember.
Last I heard it was GAO.
Okay, I knew he worked for like a federal government agency. I could not remember which one. And so he can definitely talk about that too. So I also like this call because we've got a couple folks who are in Richmond, a couple folks in DC, and then like Eva in Damascus and Alexis in Knoxville. So we've got a little bit of a mix there. I'm trying to think what else folks have done. I'm trying to go with recent grads, and you all can help me out too. We've got a lot of folks who want to work in law or like be lawyers or in the surrounding law stuff. You guys want to help me out?
Sydney Briner is getting her master's at Amherst, I think, and it's like something to do with geography. Too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, yeah. I think it is geography. So at UMass Amherst, and so we've got lots of folks who sort of want to go to graduate school after this. Trying to think of other recent grads. We have, and so like going back a little ways, we have some grads, and I'm totally blanking on this person's name because I've actually never met them, who works in data analysis. And it might be surprising on some level that like political scientists do like this kind of work. But a lot of like my PhD program was dealing with spreadsheets and dealing with numbers. And so a lot of people who are interested in this sort of go along that path. We're actually starting a new track in the social sciences. That's data analysis for social science, I think is the name that we finally settled on. And I'm really excited about that because we're going to have sort of additional methods classes that will equip people with some of those skills that are going to be really valuable in the workforce. I'm trying to think of other folks. One of our grads that that Zoomed into my class this past year, he works in Robbie Thomas is his name. He's on the board of trustees, and he is in he works in the Foreign Service in Canada.
Diplomat, right?
Yeah, so he zoomed into my class, which was really fun. It was the week before COVID hit. So he said that he was like getting ready to get in a car, and he's like, I'm just keep getting these briefings on COVID. And I don't imagine, we're like, oh yeah. And so the world changed in a week, right? But he works in the Foreign Service. I'm trying to think of other recent grads.
Maybe while you're thinking about that, though, I do see another question that popped up from Kiana. She was curious about, this one actually would be a really good one for some of you students, or those who were students rather, is that being a rural community, how is the social life? What's the campus community like? Tight knit? How would you say? I was like, y'all can jump on this one if you want to.
I don't know. I'll jump in. It's very tight knit. I think I've had class with Bailey, Taylor. I had class with Alexis, Taylor, and Eva. I know really well too. I think one thing that someone told me early on at Emory is as fun as you make it. Like there's not bars and clubs around, but the community is very, very tight knit. And once you find your group of friends, I mean, it's a forever type of bond, really. So I'd definitely say it's tight knit.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to back up what Jordan said, like I think the best friends that I have today, I met my first week at Emory and Henry, which no pressure. It's okay if you don't meet your best friend if you come to Emory and Henry in your first week, but like that just speaks to kind of how the community works. And I mean, I know most, if not all of y'all did Greek life. I did not, but that's also another way that students have like stayed socially active, so to speak, on campus as well.
That doesn't mean you have to do Greek life to have fun, like by any stretch.
Yeah, I did not do Greek life and had plenty of fun in college.
Oh, go ahead.
I didn't do Greek life either, but a lot of my friends did. And just to kind of go off what they said, it is a really tight community, and you do make friends that are friends for the rest of your life. I graduated in December, and I still talk to several of my roommates like every day. So the friends that you make at Emory, are really friends that you'll have forever, which is, really nice to have that special connection.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Sorry. I was
just going to say, the one other thing I was going to say is if you are into any outdoor activities, like Southwest Virginia is the place to be. So I was not really a hiker before I moved here, and there is just a million miles of hiking trails. I bike a lot, and so like I bike on the Virginia Creeper Trail all the time. So I mean, if you are into outdoor activities, like this is a good place to be.
Oh yeah. And speaking of activities and clubs, Aisha has a really good question about what sort of clubs or groups do we have that are associated with the major or majors?
Yeah, so some of you guys can maybe speak to this as well. I feel like the whole SGA is political science. That's a slight exaggeration. So I kind of think of the SGA like as ours. I know that's not quite true. We do have a pre-law group that has been active in recent years. Neha Ray has been running that and doing a good job. Do you all want to speak to the club question?
I would say I think I was not in any of the debate societies, but people who were, a lot of the poli-sci people were in debate societies. So that's something that correlates. I think I said earlier, I ran Young Democrats, and the guy who ran College Republicans was poli-sci as well, obviously. And we did like a lot of events together on campus. So it's kind of similar to what Jordan said earlier, but like it's what you make it. Like if you get on campus and there's not something, or you want to be a part of something that's not there, like you can do it. Like you can make it happen. The college is very welcoming towards that mentality.
I'll definitely second that. I was part of SGA, I know, with a bunch of people, but there's also like the literary society. And if, like Bailey said, if there's not a club, every semester, there's probably 5 or 6 new clubs that pop up just with the people. I think while we were there, like Ducks Unlimited came around. Multiple clubs pop up every year.
We got another couple questions. Oh, sorry. I'll cut off. I didn't want to cut anyone else off for the club question. Feel free to cut me off though. So we got another couple questions in the chat. So would you say the close-knit community helps with safety around campus, especially for people of color? So I think that this is something that Emory has been working on. And I think it's something that we're sort of continuing to talk about. Like I'm not a person of color walking around campus, so I feel like I don't feel like I can answer that question, entirely, but I know this is something that faculty and staff and students have really been working on and sort of talking through and trying to figure out the best policies that we can put in place to make all students feel safe on campus. So I know this is something that we've really been working on in the last several years and like even over the summer as well. So.
Well, I am a person of color or partial color, so I'll definitely speak to it. It's definitely a place that makes you feel welcomed. The majority of people, I think, like in the rest of the world, are good-hearted people who want you to be welcomed, want to try to make you feel welcomed as much as they can, and are very open-minded. Emory and Henry is very open-minded just in any spectrum, I think, to all people. And I think where you do have those instances that, like anywhere else, that do sometimes happen, the campus and the community around you are very quick to jump behind you and have your back in that situation. I think, like everywhere else in the world, especially now, there are moments where, bad things happen or somebody says something, but I think from administration to, the deans to the teachers to the students, everyone will jump in and really get your back. So I think if that's something that scares you, because that's something coming from mostly cities, my life, to a rural area, I was always scared, like, am I going to walk into the Klan one day? Like, is that what's going to happen? But I think, living on campus, and I lived off campus, it's a great area to be in. So.
We also do have an inclusion and dialogue center too. That is a safe space for conversation and to kind of have bring up these talks.
I know some folks are having to drop off, which is totally fine. Taylor, were you going to say something and then I cut you off? I couldn't tell. No. So let me see. There was a question that I feel like we accidentally scrolled through about like internships for international people interested in international issues. I think this is something that is harder in a like small rural community. But I do think that, like, especially for summer internships, and if people are interested in studying abroad, that's one of the places where you can really get some good experience with international issues. We also have like an international office, and we have folks who work in that as well. So there's some opportunities, but there's not as many opportunities as like if you were in like Washington, D.C., for instance, like doing international stuff.
I will say I'm a huge, I really harp on this whenever I talk to current students or prospective students. For me, internships really made my college experience, like really rounded it out. I did tons of internships. Looking back, I'm like, maybe I overdid it a bit in the internship department. But because of that, I got a wide range of experiences doing different things. And I was ready, like when I graduated, I knew what I wanted to do. So if you know that you want to do an internship in international relations and you prepare for that, then there's no reason why like that shouldn't be possible. Right. You start making those connections, you start finding maybe Emory alums in those places, start finding where maybe the best place for that is. So like, as long as you know, like, oh, I think an internship in this would be cool, like you can go for it. So it's, again, what you make it. Like, if you want to put in the effort, like, it'll happen.
Yeah. I also think for internships, sometimes it's more valuable almost to do an internship that you like said, man, I thought I was going to do this, and then I don't want to do this. I know that was my experience when I was an undergrad. I worked in the federal government for a year. I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, right? But it was a great experience. I worked with great people. I made some good money. You know, I mean, it was a great experience, but I also just found it really valuable that I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life.
Absolutely can back that up. I interned with the DSCC, which is the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. So they're like, they're trying to get Democrats elected to the Senate. Like, that's their whole goal. So it's very campaign related. And oh my goodness, I do not like election campaign related stuff, and it was not the most fun internship, but I figured that out by doing that internship. Yeah. And I was like, okay, now I know I don't really want to work on a campaign or be doing opposition research or asking lots of people for money. So
like I always recommend people interested in law school. I don't know if any of you prospective students are interested in law school to work in a law office first. And I know Alexis did. Taylor, did you work in a law office before law school? I can't remember. No.
No, just the court.
Gotcha. But I always recommend it because I know, like, I was one of those political science undergrads who's like, maybe I'll go to law school. And then I bought a law school prep book and said, no, thank you. I don't want to go to law school. So that was the extent of my law school adventure. And so I think it's really a great time to, like, during undergrad, to go ahead and start exploring those things early because it gives you like such like a much broader sort of range of things that you might be interested in. Somebody's asking the question about living on campus.
So yes, I got that one. So we do require our students when they, are coming to Emory-Henry to live on campus. We are a predominantly residential campus at the moment. One thing we are looking into that, though, of course, with how COVID has changed how things are looking at. But beforehand, if you were to live off campus, it would just need to be a situation where you were either filled out the commuter form and you had a reason, whether that's, living with family, living with a spouse, living with a guardian, or being 23 years of age, or having a health reason for it. But so we are looking at expanding that, but currently it's a mostly residential campus.
Living on campus is fun. You're going to want to live on campus.
I will say it, yes. Way back when I was a student, it's fun.
I did not live on campus when I was an undergrad, and it was not the college experience that these folks all had, right? So I'm always aware when I'm walking around campus that I'm somewhat of an imposter, right? That like there's like all these people who are having this experience that I commuted to campus. And so I do think that there is so much gained in the conversations that you have just sort of all throughout the day with your friends, whether you're in the lunchroom or just walking up and down the hill. It's such a small community that you see everyone all the time. And so I think that I like how you all are saying, it's sort of what you make of it. And I think that that's Eva's cat wants to join the party. No, it's very funny. And so I do think that it is like a small enough place where you can sort of find people who, you want to hang out with. Or at least that's what it seems to me. I'm on the faculty side, but, when I walk to and from the lunchroom on Wednesdays, I know most of the people that I pass. So that's a comforting feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or?
I don't think I see any yet.
You can pause for a moment and let people think. Do you all want to add anything else, you wonderful alums who have decided to come? I'm kind of waiting for Chaz Jones to like zoom in at some point and just say, don't worry, I'm here, but he hasn't come in yet. How's the food? It's a very important question.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Anyone want to answer the question, how's the food? You all have blank faces.
So, I mean, it's when I first came into Emory and Henry, I was like, oh my gosh, look at all these food options. I can't believe this. And it was really cool. And then it's like, I mean, it's like anything though. Like after like a year, I'm like, wow, okay, this is the food. It's food. It's fine. You can find stuff that you like. Like, it's not, they're not there to make you have a 5-star restaurant experience. Like, there's plenty of options if you want to eat healthy. If you don't want to eat healthy, there's those options as well. If you're vegetarian, there's plenty of those options. Like, you can find food to eat, and I would say most of it's probably good. Like, I don't know.
Do you all not feel like oh, go ahead, Eva.
I was just going to say, I don't think unless you go to like a school that's really known for having good food like tech, you're going to be super impressed. Like, it's just college, like cafeteria food. So like, I think that's what you should expect. Like, it's good and there's options, but it's not like, and I think it's the same for most college campuses. It's not like the most extraordinary thing you've ever had.
If you went to a public high school, it's better than a public high school. Like that, come on.
Excellent, Bailey. I know, so I worked for a month in China on Duke University's campus in China several years ago. And when I first showed up, I was like, this is amazing. I'm eating dumplings for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This is like my dream world. And by about the second week, I could not eat another dumpling, or I just was just gonna like throw my plate across the room. So I definitely feel for folks who like are, work in like these environments, because the repetition is hard, right? And even the dumplings I was tired of a few weeks in. So, but yeah.
Worst come to worst, you have McAdoo's too, which is always good.
Don't you all feel a little, Taylor's shaking her head. Do you?
McAdoo's closed.
Did it?
McAdoo's is closed?
Gone forever.
I didn't know that.
It didn't survive COVID, I don't think. It's gone.
Scott, can you speak to this? You're the only one there. I'm actually in Alabama right now. Is
Last I
McAdoo's?
checked, it was just temporarily closed.
A lot.
So these
Thanks,
are
Al.
important questions that we will.
I have Will right here, and he works there, and he says he works there. He says it's not there anymore.
Oh no, that's very sad.
Well, if you drive literally 10 to 15 minutes outside of Emory and Henry, you can get Bojangles, Taco Bell, like all of the college food necessities.
Amari brought up in the comments that there's a good burger place. There's a lot of good burger places. Can confirm.
That is true. Yeah. Don't you all feel, since you were out of college though, just talking about the food, just slightly nostalgic for the fact that you didn't have to do dishes at some point in your life? That's how every time I've worked on a college campus during the summer, I'm like, the food may not be as good as what I cook, but I don't have to do dishes. So there's a trade-off. I remember Jordan Couch when he came in to the law school session that I had. That was one of the things that he mentioned. Any other questions, comments?
Well, I was going to say, if not, that's okay. We're kind of reaching about time here.
Awesome. Well, we can maybe stop the recording, and if anyone has a lingering question that they want to, I always feel like recordings make people less likely to want to ask the question. Maybe I'm wrong. But if people can drop off the call if they need to, but if you want to stick around and ask any questions, feel free. But otherwise, thanks so much for coming. So
yeah, really, thank everybody. Thank you to everybody for coming. I'm actually going to put in my email here if any of you guys had any questions or that you'd like to ask me later. So there we go. Toss that in there. But yeah, so hey, thanks for coming, everybody. And if, like I said, feel free to send me an email if you've got any follow-up questions. And also, big thanks to a lot of our alumni that came in here today. That's super awesome.
yeah. All right, I'll stop the recording.